Alright, so, this is going to be my Q&A for the Universal Monsters. Yes, I'm doing a horror thing in February. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, yeah. So, as always, first off, I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions for this Q&A. And, as always, if you guys would like to have a Q&A done, if you'd like to be part of the next Q&A, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, hit the second tier. And, yeah, you guys can send questions the next time I send out a Q&A prelude. Anyway, so yeah, so as you can tell, it's the Universal Monsters, and I know it's a little early, but hey, those thoughts of suicide in my head are kind of loud, so I'm trying to drown it out. That wasn't a joke. I think I need professional help. Anyway, enough about that. Enough about my personal life, about my personal demons. Let's get started with the questions. Starting off with David Deister, who asks, "What Universal monster would you like to see in Dead by Daylight?" Good question. I would like to say all of them. But I know if Universal would probably only let them pick one. I would say the one I would like to see. The one I think, let's do it. Actually, I'll give you two. One I think is the option they would go with, and I will talk about the option I would go with. So the option I think, if the Universal Studios logically would give them one of the monsters, I would say it'd be Dracula. Because that's the face of the Universal Monsters for them. Or Frankenstein's monster would be the pick for Universal Studios. Frankenstein's monster, even though Dracula was the first, he's usually the face of the Universal Monsters. So I would say Frankenstein's monster, the Karloff design, would be the pick for Universal Studios. Be like, alright, we can let you use Karloff's Frankenstein for your... and they probably go with the Halloween Horror Nights version of him, too. Or maybe even Dark Universe to help promote that. But for my personal pick, my pick for the for which Universal monster I would use, my pick would be the Gill-Man. I think he would be really unique. I really do think it would be a unique pick for... you could have him, jump into, a little puddle and pop out like a teleporting move. I would even say, his lagoon would be really cool as a map, and one of the generators would be the ship, and you would have to, break out, free yourself from the lagoon, fix the generator on the boat, and then use that as your escape. That'd be kind of a cool idea. The other one I would say is the Wolfman, because I would say, you could use, a smell to detect nearby victims. That'd be cool. So, either Gill-Man or Wolfman would be my picks. Alright, so thank you for that question. Your second question is, which comic book publisher would be perfect fit for Universal Monsters? Well, funny you mention that, because I don't know if you're aware, David, the Universal Monsters have a home. A comic book home. It's at Skybound. It's at Skybound Image Books. Currently, the Dracula book has been wrapped up, and I can't wait to read that in trade by James Tynion. And they're coming out with a Creature from the Black Lagoon book, which will be a direct sequel to the original movie. Yeah, so that's what they've already got a home. I don't need to say anything. The Universal Monsters got a comic book home. And finally, what would a Ghostbusters Universal Monsters Resident Evil crossover be like? I have no idea. I can't really think of a crossover like that right off the top of my head. I would say maybe use Gozer as the main villain. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, thank you for those questions, David. Moving on now to Hunter Johnson, who asks, do you think Ed's Viking persona, Lothar, taking on the Universal Monster would be awesome and funny at the same time? Yeah, it'd be pretty fun. It'd be kind of like an Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein kind of scenario, in my opinion. That's how I just kind of see that whole thing playing out. Excuse me. Second question: what would Frankenstein's monster think of Steven Universe? I think it would be kind of like, friend. And Steve would be like, yeah, friend. Please don't throw me in the river. I mean, please don't throw me in the ocean. Something like that, I guess. And third question, what would a Indiana Jones Dracula crossover look like? I would say this would probably be set... this would actually be kind of cool if it wasn't set, if it was set a little earlier in Jones's, archaeology career. This is not when, say, his year one, but, this is, before... the rise of the Nazis or whatever. I would have maybe he's going to excavate a tomb that was found in Romania, and he accidentally cuts his hand on the coffin and brings Dracula back to life. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe even have it in the backdrop of like World War I or something. I don't know. Anywho, thank you for those questions, Hunter. Moving on now to Bill McLaughlin, who asks, Did you think Universal was surpassed by Hammer Films back in the day? You know, that's always been a question a lot of people have asked, like, did Hammer do the Universal monsters better? Sorry, had to hydrate. You know, that's a question I think a lot of people are going to ask in one capacity or another. I really do think that I think, here's the thing. When it comes to gothic atmosphere, Universal gets it. But when it comes to, like, exploitation and gore, and it has its own kind of atmosphere, kind of that 50s, 60s vibe, I would say Hammer takes it there. Like, they just took one step further and was more exploitative for the times. You know what I mean? But I really love Hammer Films, and I think, like Universal, they just ran the well dry. But I wouldn't say that Hammer surpassed them. I would say, like, they just carried the torch. That's the best way I would put it, is that they just kind of carried the torch longer. All right? Second question. Who is your favorite actor from any of the Universal monster movies? Oh, this is a tough question right here. I would say, like, if I was to pick any... if I was to pick any favorite actor, I'd say Claude Rains, because his performance of the Invisible Man is just phenomenal. Yeah, I'd probably say, like, that would be my initial reaction is Claude Rains. Claude Rains would be the top pick for my favorite actor. Although no discredit to, like, Karloff and Lugosi and all the other favorites, but Claude Rains, for just his Invisible Man performance alone, was enough. So I think I'm going to go with that. And your final question is, who is your favorite human character hero in any of the Universal monster movies? Human? Okay, we got some good questions here. I would say, like, for human character, the thing is like, it wasn't really focused on the human heroes, so it's really hard to really pick one because it was more focused on the monsters themselves than anything else. So that kind of is the big thing, is that, you know, it was never about the human characters, it was about the monsters. Kind of like how the legendary Monsterverse movies are going right now, is that it's not so much about them, you know, as it is about, you know, the monsters themselves. But if I had to pick one, I would say Van Helsing, like young Van Helsing. Not young Van Helsing, I mean, like, from Lugosi's film of Van Helsing. I would say also, if we're going to go, like, outside of the Universal monsters and go more with the, you know, modern times, I would say Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing and Rick O'Connell from The Mummy, since we're counting those Universal monsters as well. So I would say those... Actually, no, I'll take that. Like, I love... like, Lugosi, Van Helsing, but Hugh Jackman and Rick O'Connell are just fun characters and are great... are just fun times. So there you go. So thank you for those questions, Bill. Moving on now to Tom Hibbert, who asks, first question, which Universal monster would you like to see have an anime, and what would it be about? I would really love to see the Universal monsters get an anime. And I have this weird feeling that, like, that's been talked about in a lot of their meetings, where they want to keep up with, you know, Universal Studios and this initiative to make the Universal monsters, like, prevalent, and make them, like, cool and hip and whatnot. I think all of them, really. I think really all of them can fit within an anime kind of feel. But if I had to really pick one to start things off, it would have to be Dracula. Dracula's been done in anime to, like, not, you know, no pun intended, to death. So Dracula makes the most sense because he's had the most, like, people would know Dracula from anime and book alone. So he's probably your best pick for doing this. I think Dracula is the best pick to start. I mean, he started the movies. He may as well start with an anime. And again, it's not the first time we've seen Dracula have an anime, but it would be more of that universal tone, which I think would be really cool. Anyway, so that's who I would pick for an anime. If I was to pick another, I would like to see a Creature from the Black Lagoon anime, if only to see what they would do with the creature. But again, it runs that whole thing of like why I'm kind of nervous about the redesign for Epic Universe, because I'm worried that they'll just, they will just like fuck up a perfect design. So, but Gilman would be really cool. Frankenstein would be neat. I think all of them, really. But again, Dracula would be my first pick. Anyway. Alright, so second question. What are your thoughts on the Abbott and Costello Meet movies? Oh, I love all of them. I really enjoy all of them, to various extents. Of course, Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is goated as one of the best horror comedies ever. It's also goated as a great comedy film. I really enjoy the others for various degrees. But you could tell, the well had been dry for both Abbott and Costello and the Monsters, and this was just, like, a last gasp for both of them. But yeah, they're all really... I know... the Mummy one, I think, is the least likable because of just how poor that mummy looks, and some of the jokes are just bad. So I would say, Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy is probably the weakest one. But still, all around fine. Your third question is, do you feel some monsters get underrepresented as others? Yeah, I do. I really do feel like sometimes they kind of underrepresent the monsters in various extents. They really do have this thing where they kind of, when they really want to showcase all the monsters, I'm always like, they forget one or two or several. It's never the whole cast. That's what really irks me, is whenever when Universal Studios brought them back for Halloween Horror Nights in new updated forms, they didn't have it I should say, actually, in Universal Studios Orlando, they didn't have the Invisible Man for that maze, and we had to wait till Unmasked to see the Invisible Man there. But at the California one, they had all the monsters. I mean, the Invisible Man only had one scene, but it was basically enough. I would say, the Invisible Man probably gets the short end of the stick for most of them. If it's any monster, if any of the Universal monsters that gets the short end of the stick and gets least amount of time, it's the Invisible Man who gets showcased the least. Which is weird, because, you'd think with the visible design, and I know he's invisible, it's kind of hard to do that. But I would dare say that, when he's visible and showing off his invisibility is, that's a striking image. For the longest time, they didn't focus on the Phantom of the Opera, but now, they're real... And Phantom is technically the first one. The Hunchback, I still feel like that's kind of a piss-poor move, because the whole point of the Hunchback of Notre Dame is that he's not a monster. So I always say, for me, personally, the Phantom of the Opera is... the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera is the first one, Universal monster picture. But yeah, he wasn't represented for the longest time, but now he's just part of the gang now. But yeah, but that's the thing, whenever they do, some kind of merchandise or whatever, they always exclude one or two. Hell, this, Universal Monsters, calendar I have over my desk right now doesn't have the Invisible Man or the Phantom, and doesn't have a few monsters. I'm like, that bothers me, because you could have filled it up. You could have filled this thing up a few times over. Hell, the new guy you got, Mr. Hyde, who they've decided to lump in with him, doesn't have any images yet, but I'm sure they'll work on that. Anyway, thank you for those questions, Tom Hibbert. Moving on now to Jason Voorhees 2011, who asks, what was the first Universal Monsters movie that you ever watched? The first movie I ever watched, it kind of banties in my head, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure that, I'm 99% sure the first movie I ever watched the Universal Monsters was The Wolfman. It was a late night, it's kind of coming back to me, where it was part of AMC's, one of their first Monster Fest. You guys remember, before it was Fear Fest, it was Monster Fest, and they would show the classic movies? that was one of the first Universal monster. I think, yeah, The Wolfman was the first Universal monster movie I ever watched. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I'm 99% sure it's the Wolfman. Second question, most underrated Universal monster. The Invisible Man. At least that's what I feel like. Again, going back to the underrepresentation that Tom Hibbert was talking about. The Invisible Man really gets underrated out of all of them. I really do feel like, and it sucks too because I think his movie is not just like one of the best. I think it's also has the best special effects, and I know like 1933 and the effects they have in there, like you have to put yourself in the mindset of someone watching this movie in 1933 and seeing those invisible effects. It was stunning for its time, and that came out the same year as King Kong, so that was a big thing too. But I digress. But yeah, it's. Out of all of them, it's the Invisible Man who just, you can't see him in merchandising. So, third question. If you could pitch any Universal Monster crossover, what would the premise be? I guess what Jason means is not like crossover within universe, I mean outside of universe. A few. I mean, obviously everyone's been on this channel long enough to know, like, I really do have some pitches for everybody. So I would say, like, well, I really hope Image does something cool, like when Dynamite and Top Cow did that classic monsters, Image versus Top Cow versus Image superheroes, where they had like Dracula fight against like Witchblade, Darkness, and Lara Croft. Which, by the way, can we just all acknowledge that how we lived in a time period where Lara Croft, Tomb Raider existed in the same unit? It wasn't even like for crossover. She existed in the Top Cow universe with the Witchblade and Darkness. Does that just not, like, fuck with you? Ugh. But yeah, I would say, like, do something like Image. It would be cool if Image did something like that again, but with, like, other Image characters, like, or other Image titles, like have, Dracula in Radiant Black, or Frankenstein's monster in Spawn. That'd be really, that'd be something cool. But if I could say, like, another Universal Monster crossover, maybe have Universal Monsters versus DC, because it's ain't happening in Marvel. Yeah, so maybe something like that. Yeah, so thank you for those questions, Jason. Moving on now to Alistair Bondman, who asks, since the first entry into the Dark Universe with The Mummy was such a resounding disaster, and most people feel like the first two Brendan Fraser movies were great, do you think we'll ever see a great Mummy movie again? I think it's a possibility. I think they're going to stay away from The Mummy because, like, they struck out twice with Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and then Tom Cruise's Mummy. But those first two movies, even though The Mummy Returns does have a little more of adventure feel than horror than the first one did, that movie's still goated. So I would say, I think never say never, but if they were to do it again, it would have to be like a dark horror movie. I would really love to see Clyde because initially, before they got Stephen Sommers to do The Mummy, initially it was going to be Clive Barker, the creator of Hellraiser, that was going to do The Mummy. I would love to see something like that. So make it like a dark, hopefully Blumhouse. Well, I don't know if I trust Blumhouse these days as much as I used to, but I would say, like, it would be really cool if we got a Mummy, if we got a Mummy movie as like a dark Egyptian horror movie. So yeah. Second question. Follow-up question. Do you think we'll ever get any future Mummy movies? We should move away from Egypt and towards other mummies. Yeah. So basically he's asking, like, should we move away from Egyptian mummies and instead focus on mummies from other, like, like from Peru or other place in Central America. I would say that would be kind of a neat idea, but the thing of it is that Universal's not going to do that because the mummy they have is from Egypt, and it's always connected to Egypt, so they're not going to move away from that. So I don't think that's going to ever be a thing, I'm sorry to say, Alistair. And your final question is, while very strange, did you like Shape of Water with Guillermo del Toro drastically changing the Gill Man? And do you think well, technically Shape of Water isn't a Universal monster movie. It is based on the Gill Man, and word on the street is, initially it was supposed to be Creature from the Black Lagoon, and del Toro pitched it for the Dark Universe, but Universal is like, no. Tom Cruise is gonna launch the Dark Universe. Your Creature from the Black Lagoon movie can go somewhere else, del Toro. And it did, and it won an Oscar. Funny how things work. But yeah, they've all been, like, to answer your question, making the other movies, the other monster movies into romance movies, they've all been kind of romance movies, haven't they? In one capacity or another, they've all been romance movies. At the heart of their stories is they've all been, these dark gothic romance stories, from Dracula to Frankenstein to the Wolfman, to all of them. They all have that feeling of romance. So yeah, it wouldn't be that drastic. You just got to get the right director and writer. But thank you for those questions, Alistair. Moving on now to Imaginate, who asks, do you think other Universal monsters would see, no pun intended, the Invisible Man just as another human prey? Probably not, because he's stronger. Like, I think people forget that the Invisible Man, thanks to the monocaine drug he took, it gives him superhuman strength. So, probably not. Probably wouldn't be in their best interest. Second question. Could the Frankenstein monster be technically classified as a zombie since he's made of dead parts brought back to life? See, he's not made from a virus or voodoo curse, and he's also intelligent. And he's not eating people. At least in most incarnations, he's not eating people. So I don't think he would be undead, but not a zombie. Yeah. So that's how I kind of feel on that matter. And your final question is, I know they used interchangeable, but in your opinion, what's the difference between the Wolfman and a werewolf, or is there ever a difference? No, there isn't a difference. There is no difference, in my opinion. There is really no difference between the Wolfman and a werewolf. It's just how you name them. Like, that's really it. It's just how it's the naming. Yeah. So think of those questions, Imaginate. Moving on now to Cyborg19.99, who asks, what would Dracula think of Castlevania's Dracula? I think he would be like, I think he would be greatly impressed that another variant of him is out there murdering humans. And while he'd be like, well, you fell in love with a human, but still, you're sticking it to those stupid humies. I think, like, he would understand and be like, cheering him on. So thank you for that. So your second question is how would you do a Mummy Yu Yu Hakusho crossover? It would probably be Brendan Fraser Mummy, and how I would do it is that maybe like Botan tasks and Koenma task Yusuke and his crew to locate and find the Book of the Dead because it messes with the powers of life and death. So they have to go and recover it because they discover it's been found in a museum, and they go there. You have a cult of Emotep come and resurrect Emotep. Shenanigans ensue or something like that. It's kind of the loose idea I have. Thank you for those questions, Cyborg. Moving on now to Mount Vernon Kid. Chris, how you doing? Can we all agree that The Mummy and Mummy 2 are two great examples of modern-day period piece movies? Absolutely. They are basically Indiana Jones movies with monsters in them. And I'm shocked Disney never went to Stephen Sommers or even considered him for Indiana Jones 5. No disrespect to James Mangold, but I think Sommers would... it's clear he has a lot of love for those films and would do great with them. Same with Joe Johnston. If you ever watch Captain America It's like, yeah, why didn't they get considered for Indiana Jones? But yeah, they're great films. Second question. Where does Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman, which is Universal, stand with you? It stands as an excellent movie for me. It's a highly underrated movie. I absolutely love it. It's a great period piece. It's a fun action movie, and I never thought it was bad. I just thought it was just a fun roller coaster and just a great homage to, classic Universal monsters. But yeah. And your third question is, we need a new Creature from the Black Lagoon. What say you? I say yes. Universal Studios has tried multiple times to do a new a new Creature from the Black Lagoon movie, and I'm hoping we get an announcement one day that they finally do it, because they keep announcing it. They were supposed to be in the 90s with John Carpenter, and then again with another director. I think it was supposed to be Steven Spielberg. Those never happened, and then they tried again with another director. I think. They always get big-name directors, but nothing comes of it. So I'm really hoping one day they just go, fine, we're going to do Creature from the Black Lagoon, but you really got to be careful with that design. So that's my thoughts on it. But thank you again, Chris. Moving on now to our final set, which is Gordon Rajani, who asks, what's a Universal Monster crossover that we never got in film would you like to have seen? So basically, in universe. So, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman in, House of Frankenstein. I would say, one I would really like to see is, I would have really loved to seen Creature from the Black Lagoon versus the Wolfman. Have the two, Larry Talbot goes to the Amazon in search of, he hears, rumors of, this, flower that can cure his lycanthropy, but it's only found in the Black Lagoon. And he's rummaging around in there, and the creature comes out hey, get the fuck out of my yard, and the two fight. Another one I think I would be really cool with is another one I really would have liked to seen is I had it too. Frankenstein and Dracula, Frankenstein's monster and Dracula. They've fought in other really bad movies, but a Universal Studios monster movie where the two most iconic of the Universal monsters fight, that'd be like Freddy versus Jason level of awesome, if you ask me. Yeah. And your second question is, would you have liked to see more of the Bride of Frankenstein? Yeah, she only gets less than 5 minutes of screen time, and I'm being generous with those. But yet she's iconic. So I would have loved to see more of her. I know it's not Universal Studios, but they're kind of doing a Bride of Frankenstein movie with Maggie Gyllenhaal directing. So I'm looking forward to that, even if it's not a Universal monster movie. But yeah. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much my Universal Monsters Q&A. I want to thank everyone who sent in questions, and like I said before, if you guys would like to be part of the next Q&A, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon, hit the second tier. That'll allow you access to ask questions, and also check out all the videos when the exclusive videos over there on Patreon as well. But yeah, also I might do this again when we get close to Halloween, because I love the Universal Monsters that much. Shut up. Anyway. Hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.